TikTok and Meta urge to step up online monitoring efforts. Government to finalise sugar supply and pricing stabilization mechanism. Good evening and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rene Fong and you're watching Malaysia Tonight. Social media platform providers TikTok and Meta have been urged to step up their monitoring efforts following the surge in harmful online content. The Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission MCMC and the Royal Malaysia Police PDRM said that the matter was agreed upon in a meeting with the two platform providers at MCMC headquarters Cyberjaya yesterday, chaired by Communications Minister Fahmi Fadzil. The meeting is part of efforts by the MCMC with various departments and enforcement agencies to address the spread of content that touches on the sensitivity of the 3R, race, religion and royalty issues. The platform providers are also urged to effectively address 3R-related content by referring to platform guidelines and Malaysian laws. According to MCMC statistics, there has been an increase in harmful content of social media and over-the-top OTT platforms. For the first 3 months of this year alone, a total of 51,638 cases were referred to online platform providers for further action. This figure is higher than the 42,904 cases recorded throughout last year. Other matters discussed in the meeting included improvements to online safety, especially the implementation of age verification measures that require users to be at least 13 years old. His Majesty Sultan Ibrahim, the King of Malaysia, cautioned the nation's political leaders today, advising them not to engage in extreme rhetoric when discussing religious and racial matters. The ruler emphasized that leaders from all parties should serve as a unifying force within the nation's diverse society, exemplifying maturity and responsibility in their conduct. In the post, Sultan Ibrahim said the recent events should serve as a wake-up call for all segments of society to have the responsibility of safeguarding national unity. His Majesty emphasized that the true unity among the people will be the catalyst for the well-being of Malaysia as a whole. And as the country approaches the auspicious Hari Raya celebration, let everyone forgive each other and open a new chapter. According to the Post, Sultan Ibrahim today granted an audience to senior leaders from UMNO and DAP at Istana Negara, which focus on current developments related to sensitive religious and racial issues. The leaders present at the audience were UMNO Deputy President Datuk Sri Muhammad Hassan, Melaka UMNO Liaison Committee Chairman Datuk Sri Abdul Rauf Yusof, DAP Deputy Secretary General Liu Chin Tong, and UMNO Youth Chief Dr. Muhammad Akmal Saleh. The government will decide on mechanisms to stabilise sugar supply and pricing in the second quarter of this year. Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Dato' Amizan Muhammad Ali said one mechanism under consideration is maintaining stockpiles to ensure an uninterrupted sugar supply. The minister also did not rule out the possibility that the mechanism would consider providing subsidies or raising the controlled price from the current RM2.85 per kilogram. However, he said any decision made by the government will not burden the people. Dato' Amizan said the world also faces a deficit of sugar supply of about 1 million tonnes last year. This year, the figure is projected to reach 5.4 million tonnes due to various factors, including production being affected by weather and geopolitics. Hence, he said the mechanism being evaluated by the government is crucial to ensure that the people always have access to sugar supply at reasonable prices. He said the government has also provided import relaxation since June last year by issuing sugar import permits to 43 companies with the condition that 30% of the imported sugar must be sold at the controlled price of RM2.85 per kilogram to increase sugar supply in the country. The Malaysian Aviation Commission, MAVCOM, will be submitting amendments to the Malaysian Aviation Consumer Protection Code 2016 MACPC related to carbon levy for gazettemen by the end of April 2024. The Commission said it had completed the public consultation to gather feedback on the implementation of carbon fees for air travel. The public consultation is to ensure that while airlines impose carbon fees or any other charges, adequate consumer protection measures are in place. However, Putrajaya is making it optional for both local and international carriers flying in and out of Kuala Lumpur to charge carbon levy. It is worth noting that Denmark, Sweden, South Africa and the Netherlands are among the countries that have imposed carbon levies upon passengers. Carbon levy is an international obligation and is applicable to all airlines to contribute towards the carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation, CORSIA. According to the International Air Transport Association, IATA, global aviation accounted for about 2% of man-made carbon emissions. The association estimated that sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, could contribute upon around 65% of the reduction in emissions needed by aviation to reach net zero in 2050, requiring a massive increase in production to meet demand. The Ministry of Health, MOH, issued a total of 1,639 notices under Section 32B of the Food Act 1983, with compound values amounting to 163,900 ringgit. The ministry issued the notices during the food safety and hygiene operation at Ramadan Bazaars conducted between 12 March and 5 April. In a statement today, MOH said the notices were issued to the owners and representatives of premises and food handlers regarding a range of violations, such as failure to undergo food handler training, absence of typhoid vaccination, and non-adherence to food handler attire. As of 5 April, MOH received 29 complaints related to food sold at Ramadan Bazaars nationwide. 20 complaints have been resolved, while 9 are still under investigation. 1,299 Ramadan Bazaar sites were inspected nationwide, resulting in 3 food premises ordered to close under Section 11 of the Food Act 1983. MOH conducted the operation at Ramadan Bazaars through the Food Safety and Quality Program, aimed at ensuring that food prepared and sold complied with the requirements set forth in the Food Act 1983, Food Regulations 1985 and Food Hygiene Regulations 2009. Right up next, Malaysian labour market expected to remain stable in 2024. Malaysia's labour market is projected to remain stable in 2024, with the average unemployment rate at 3.2%, consistent with the 2023 rate of 3.4%. According to Kenanga Investment Bank Berhad or Kenanga IB, this reflected the continuous employment growth observed recently. Elaborating further through a note today, this is largely attributed to the expected steady expansion in economic activities driven by strong domestic demand. Kenanga IB also projected gross domestic product GDP growth to reach 3.3% in the first quarter of 2024, with an overall 2024 GDP growth forecast ranging from 4.5 to 5%. Additionally, they expect a recovery in the manufacturing sector driven by technology upcycles, as well as the realization of approved investments recorded last year to further boost hiring activities in the coming months. Nevertheless, Kenanga IB said structural issues in the labour market remain concerning, particularly the persistent youth unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 24 years old, which remained at 10.6% in February for the 4th consecutive month, affecting 306,600 people. Additionally, the investment bank noted that skill-related underemployment stood at 37.4%, reaching a record high of 1.94 million in the fourth quarter of 2023. Analysts, meanwhile, are optimistic about the growth prospects for Malaysia's industrial sector this year, despite a softer industrial production index (IPI) growth of 3.1% year-on-year recorded in February 2024. Although the IPI growth in February increased modestly, marking a slowdown from the 4.3% growth recorded in January, it surpassed market expectations of a growth rate between 1.5% and 1.8% by a considerable margin. Public Investment Bank Berhad in a note said that, however, external demand remains the primary risk factor influencing the Malaysian economy. The bank said while both the government and central bank anticipate economic expansion within the range of 4 to 5% for the year, their outlook suggests a more conservative estimate of around 3.7%, contingent upon the magnitude of downside risks exerting notable influence. Yesterday, the Department of Statistics Malaysia (DOSM) said the moderation of February's IPI was primarily attributed to the slower output growth in the manufacturing sector, which grew by 1.2% compared with 3.7% in January 2024. Kenanga Investment Bank Berhad (KIBB) meanwhile said the manufacturing index forecast is retained at 4.6% in 2024 as the momentum may pick up pace in the second half of 2024. Moving on, the performance of the Industrial Production Index (IPI), Distributive Trade Index (DTI) and crude palm oil (CPO) in February 2024 signals a firmer first quarter gross domestic product (GDP) growth for Malaysia. Maybank Investment Bank Berhad, Maybank IB, said based on these indicators, it estimated that the economy grew 3.3% year-on-year in February 2024 and 3.7% in the first 2 months of 2024. Expanding on the subject in a note today, the investment bank indicated that this supports their prediction of a growth increase in 2024 to 4.4% from 3.7% in 2023. Previously, the Malaysia Palm Oil Board announced that CPO output totaled 1.26 million tonnes in February 2024, which Maybank IB said was at a slower pace of year-on-year growth of 0.5% versus January 2024's 1.6% growth. In contrast, February 2024 witnessed a faster growth in DTI of 3.9% year-on-year against 3.5% in the preceding month, as the volumes of retail trade and wholesale rose amid a softer growth in motor vehicles trade volume. Maybank IB said the IPI eased in February 2024 as slower growth in manufacturing countered the faster growth in mining and electricity. In view of the shorter working month in February 2024 due to the Lunar New Year holiday, slower manufacturing growth reflected a decline in export-oriented industries. The Ramsey Business Confidence Index (BCI), which examines forward-looking business sentiment in Malaysia, rose to 53.4 in the first quarter of 2024, following 2 consecutive quarters of decline. The positive score, which is above the neutral level of 50, delineating positive and negative sentiments, was recorded as compared to the downturn posted in the third quarter of 2023 at 50.4 and in the fourth quarter of 2023 at 48.9. Through a statement release, Ramsey said the upturn in sentiments was observed across all 5 surveyed aspects of doing business, as respondents were sanguine about higher sales, capital investments and hiring prospects. but the still elevated cost pressures inhibited their profitability expectations. According to the survey, the rising cost of doing business continued to top the list of challenges for the 9th consecutive survey and was cited even more widely than in the last quarter. The BCI survey noted that around 90% of the 115 firms polled had cited rising costs as their top challenge in the next 3 months. The survey also revealed that around 50% of respondents, mainly SMEs, rely on their trade or business associations to provide an efficient and critical support network within their trade segments. Front, South Korea gears up for tomorrow's parliamentary election. United States President Joe Biden hosts the leaders of Japan and the Philippines this week to boost economic and defense ties as the allies seek to offset China's growing might and manage risks ranging from North Korea to the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. Biden's bilateral summit with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Wednesday will bring an upgrade in defense ties with Japan, Washington's cornerstone ally in the Indo-Pacific region and an increasingly important global partner. Kishida, beleaguered at home, will be greeted in the United States with great fanfare, with Japanese flags already festooning Washington lampposts and a glittering White House dinner with some 200 guests. On Thursday, he will become only the second Japanese leader to address a joint meeting of Congress after his assassinated predecessor Shinzo Abe gave a speech in 2015. Political analysts say the visit is a chance for Kishida to boost dire domestic popularity ratings ahead of a September leadership contest in his ruling Liberal Democratic Party. On to South Korea. Polling stations were being set up on Tuesday on the eve of a parliamentary election to decide the makeup of its 300-strong National Assembly. However, most initial polls suggest that outcome that will do little to break the deadlock that has gripped the divided government. President Yoon Suk-yeol has suffered from low approval ratings for months and will further lose momentum if his People Power Party PPP performs poorly in the election. The parliament is currently dominated by the Democratic Party DP, which holds 142 out of 297 seats and allies with smaller opposition parties to hold the majority. According to a poll conducted by KBS and Hankook Research between 30th of March and 2nd April, 4 in 10 respondents said they would vote for the DP, while 33% said they would back PPP. In a joint survey released on Thursday by 4 pollsters, however, 39% of respondents said they would vote for the PPP and 37% for the DP. The two major parties have said dozens of regions are too close to call and new polls are prohibited in South Korea in the last 6 days before the election. From South Korea on to Indonesia, where millions of Indonesian Muslims braved extensive traffic jams as they began the journey to their hometowns ahead of Idul Fitri on Wednesday. Thousands of vehicles were seen queuing to board ferries at a seaport in Merak, some 100 kilometers west of Jakarta, while long lines of vehicles stretched far outside. Passengers said it was easier to get tickets last year when commuters could buy same-day tickets on the spot compared to this year when many faced issues with an online ticketing system. According to the Indonesian Transport Ministry, Jakarta residents started leaving the capital from over the weekend through various modes of transportation. The ministry also said around 193 million people across the nation were expected to travel during the week-long holiday this year, about 56% higher compared to the same period last year. Hari Raya Aidilfitri will be celebrated by more than 220 million people in Indonesia, which has one of the world's largest Muslim populations. On Champions League experience for advantage over Arsenal. More on that in the sports news. Bayern Munich coach Thomas Tuchel believes his side's extensive experience in the Champions League could give them the edge as they prepare to face Arsenal in the quarter-finals. Bayern, who have won the European Cup 6 times, visit the Gunners in their first leg clash early tomorrow. Arsenal's best showing in the elite competition was reaching the 2006 final.
Im einzelnen Spiel. Sie dominieren im Moment die schwierigste Liga in der Welt und das spricht für sich. Es ist nur so, dass wir natürlich auch um unsere Stärken wissen, dass wir auch darum wissen, wie wir ihnen wehtun wollen. Wir wissen, dass Champions League trotzdem ein Wettbewerb ist, in dem wir mehr Erfahrung haben als Arsenal über die Historie und auch über die vergangenen Jahre, die letzten 4 Jahre, die letzten 5 Jahre.
History favours Bayern as this marks the 5th Champions League clash in the knockout stages between the two teams, with the Germans prevailing on all 4 previous occasions. Tuchel considered Bayern's overall form this season deserved criticism after some lackluster displays. They are 16 points adrift of leaders Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga and were dumped out of German Cup by 3rd tier Saarbrücken. Mikel Arteta, meanwhile, has challenged Arsenal to prove their right Champions League record against Bayern is ancient history, as the Gunners look to seize their special opportunity to reach the semi-finals.
Top team. I'm a big fan, big admirer of Thomas. His teams, the way they settle, the way they play, what they transmit. I have learned a lot about him. And looking at Bayern, and when you analyze him deeply, you see why they are a top team. So we have prepared very well, and we have to take our game and take our game where we want it. And if we do that, we'll have a chance to win.
Arsenal have not made the Champions League semi-final since 2009 and will be playing in the last 8 for the first time since 2010. While Bayern are well below their usual standards this term, Arteta is relishing the opportunity to face the 6-time European champions. And that's it for Malaysia Tonight this time around. In our top story, TikTok and Meta urged to step up online monitoring efforts. I'm Renee Fong, and on behalf of RTM's English News Desk, Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching RTM, teman setia anda.